Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Video Progetti Live Talk. This is the webinars that we are carrying in our channel to communicate about the technologies related to media production. Today's conversation is about content delivery, and it's, as you see, it's from pixel to platforms. This is the third episode of our series. Over the past decade, we have seen a kind of transformation in the industry because we passed in around 2013 from physical media to file delivery, and then we had the inception of OTT and streaming that has kind of transformed the business and all the requirements and processes behind the content preparation. Of course, 4K, HDR, and other things has made all these requirements even more a bit, let's say, sophisticated. As usual, we used to have guests that are, specialists from the industry, and also today I'm proud to introduce you our guests. So from Laura Castelli from Colorfront NMF. Hi, Laura.
Ciao, buongiorno. Hi, everyone.
David Thompson from the DPP UK Digital Production Partnership. Hi, David.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And last but not least, Max Melone, CTO of Flat Parioli Digital Post in Rome. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Ciao, Max. So I think it's great to have you with us today. I've forgotten to wish all of you and all our attendees a good new year, 2025, great success, and every possible positive things for personally and for the business, of course. So maybe a little introduction from you before jumping into the topic today. So Laura, maybe as you see, I've put together a different guests from different part of the business. So David is more an organization that is facilitating the business in harmonizing and bringing in knowledge. I have a great esteem of the work you have done as DPP in the past years, David. Laura is more a software company which create tools that are useful exactly for this process, and that's perfect. And Max Melone represents the guys that has hands-on in the process to make the hard work on a daily basis. So that's basically what I've tried to do by putting you together today. So Laura, maybe a little intro of yourself before start talking.
Before we start, okay, thank you, Ale. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Okay, my name is Laura Castelli. I work for NMF, which is the worldwide distributor for Colorfront's products. So today I'm here to talk with David and Max about what you just described, Ale. And I'm going to try to give you an example of our tool and how we deal with QC and deliverables and delivery of packages for the major OTT. So all the parts that represents this process using the Colorfront products. I'll try. I'm going to be quite technical. I anticipate that, but it's good to have this view of things and how to really actually, use the software to do this. Colorfront has different products, and it's very fluid in terms of platform. Can run on PC or Mac, also in the cloud. And I'd like to also mention that everything that I'm going to show you is also automatable, which is a big part of our workflow today. You end up doing a lot of the same job, and it's good to have this sort of like automation options to make things faster in this case. So yeah, that's me in a few words. In general, I do presentation and trainings for Colorfront. So in the future.
Good. It's good you mentioned the automation because it's a complex process. So the fact that you can automate and make it repeatable and more, let's say, cost-effective. It's an important message. David, a little intro from you.
Okay, so my name is David Thompson. I'm technology strategist at the DPP. For those of you who are not familiar with the DPP, we are the International Network for Media and Technology. So our goal is to help our members get insight, so learn about what's going on in the industry, best practices, and also to make connections. And we run 3 in-person events every year. So we have one in London every November, one in New York every June, and we run one in Europe. This year, it's going to be in Cologne in March. And the area we're going to be talking about has been a huge concern for our members. As you said, Alessandro, the industry has changed dramatically over the last few years. And, VOD distribution's become incredibly important. So we're going to be looking at, what our members say they're doing, their workflows, but also looking at the pain points and kind of the evolution of those pain points over the last few years.
Excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate the work you've done. So, good job. And finally, Max, you are from a very reputable post lab in Rome, and I appreciate you are with us. So, a couple of words.
Thank you to you, Alessandro. Massimo Melone, I'm CTO for Flat Parioli. Flat Parioli is a post-production house working in the market from about more than 10 years right now. Yes, we are the people, as you mentioned before, that put the hand between the standard and the best practice we are talking about with David, and the hardware and software we have to use to be compliant with this standard. For instance, we have also a color front in our lab. That is our last line for the finishing. Yeah. We also use color front for the QC in some instances. Yes, my role here is just to have a quick overview of the post-production workflow and how the hardware and software and the standard are all together merged.
Good. So I would start our conversation with David so that we can have a bit of introduction of what is the status of the industry for the content preparation and delivery specifically. So David, the word to you. Thank you for your presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Alessandro. So in the presentation, we're going to be looking at how our members and how companies are meeting consumer demands, and these are within VOD distribution challenges. So as Alessandro was saying earlier, changing audience behavior and the proliferation of OTT platforms has really complicated content distribution workflows. One of our members said once that launching a linear TV channel was so much easier than delivering VOD content. So it's added a lot of complexity into what our members and what broadcasting content owners are needing to do. So for that reason, broadcasters, content owners are needing their content to be everywhere, but then there's also a huge challenge about how to be profitable with the challenging economic environment. So it's complicated, but it has to be done with less expense, which makes it even more difficult. So looking at some of the challenges that our members are talking about today, the first is one that we've talked about. So customers basically want to be able to watch content anywhere. So on their mobile phones, their smart TVs, their tablets, their PlayStation 5s, and also on whatever platform. So if they want to watch it on TikTok, on Amazon Prime, on Netflix. So there's a real pressure to get content everywhere. However, although there is some move to standardization in terms of video formats, OTT platforms have a lot of vastly different requirements for content delivery. And this is particularly in areas like metadata, which we'll look at a bit later. The complexity means that onboarding platforms and delivery, the cost of it risks exceeding the returns they get back. So there's a need to both, make it easier, more automated, which we discussed earlier too, in order to save money, but also to look at how content is monetized. So both in terms of subscriber and advertising, so ways to do that. Finally, complexity is also creating challenges for monitoring and QC. With content going everywhere, there's a lot more problems with content getting lost or not getting the correct files for packaging. This is also creating a problem, and the monetization. So you need a lot more data to interest advertisers and also to retain subscriber audiences. So data has become very important as well. In 2020, the DPP published an insight piece called "Supplying the VOD Revolution," and we were basically meeting with our members to discuss, what does a typical VOD workflow look like, and what were the difficulties. And this is what we came up with. There was based on a series of webinars and in-person sessions that were held. So this kind of shows what a standard VOD workflow is. So it starts off with a deal, so making a deal with a platform for distribution, then onboarding to that platform, so making sure that you're delivering metadata content in the right format, choosing the assets and getting those on board for delivery, doing compliance. So a lot of our members are delivering content internationally, so looking at making sure content complies with local and international standards, doing versioning. So delivering, creating different versions, whether it's localization or different platforms. QC, ensuring we have the right metadata. So a lot of platforms have different specification requirements for their metadata, so making sure that's all correct. Getting images in the correct format and specification. Building this all into a package that can be delivered. Delivering it to the platforms, and then on the platform side, they do their own QC. They then transform into all their different output formats they publish, and then there's this rejection and edit and QC process, which if an asset gets rejected, you then need to make sure that it is compliant and then re-deliver it. So that's a whole kind of back and forth between content owners and the platforms. In 2020, we asked people what their pain points were. And the ones that were listed as very high pain points are in the kind of reddish color. And those that were listed as minor pain points, or still pain points, but not as bad, were in the amber. So in the very beginning of this, the deal and the onboarding were both listed as being very painful. And one of the reasons for the deal being painful is there's a lot of very complicated rights issues. So where content can be distributed, at what times it can be distributed. There's the cost. As we said, this is quite an expensive process. So negotiating all those things around rights in particular was something that our members are saying is very painful. Onboarding, I've worked on the other side of this with companies on onboarding with platforms, and I can tell you that it's very painful. It can take weeks and lots of back and forth. So they said, the process of onboarding is complicated. Ingesting of assets.
Sorry, David. For the onboarding, you have also a document which is DPP 007. I
Yes.
contributed also to this document, which is interesting to be read in order to have all the nuances that stay behind the onboarding process. Just to say that.
Yeah. No, that is, and it's something actually, Alessandro, we're going to be working on in 2025 to update. We've had a number of members who have expressed interest in having that updated, so it's something we're going to be working on again this
Good.
year. What I should say as well is there's a link on the bottom of the slide there. If anyone wants to read Supplying the VOD Revolution, it's available there on the link to DPP members.
Okay.
So moving on, so compliance versioning. There's people were having to create versions, particularly for internationalization, for localization of content. QC metadata was a pain point as well, and at that time, creating different metadata formats for each platform. Whether that's differences in synopsis length or differences in things like genre types that for each platform, making sure that was correct. And then the other bits that were painful are the whole process of publishing and having content rejected, and then the kind of back and forth. So a piece of content might be rejected for, different compliance or for quality reasons. And it's then the process of correcting that, resending it, getting it back. And that was something else that members were saying was very complicated. So it's a difficult workflow. And it was something in 2020 that was causing a lot of pain. You would have thought that over the last 5 years, things would have gotten better, but in fact, they've gotten worse.
Oh, wow.
So this is something that this is based on work that I've done over the last 2 years in our demand versus supply, and it's looking at pain points of customers and how technology is meeting this. So there's a few things that have gotten worse in this area. So the deal in the onboarding is still very complicated. We still have issues with rights. But one of the areas that's become more difficult is around versioning. Basically, content owners have realized that not only do they need to worry about localization of content, so making sure content is available in different languages, but they're also needing to target content towards individual like locations, like London or Brighton or Milan, to create it more local versions. They're also understanding that users of different platforms have different interests, so they're even creating different versions for say TikTok, or a different version for YouTube, or a different version for Prime even. So one of our members this past IBC was telling me that they're literally creating like 40 different versions of every piece of content, and it's become almost unmanageable for them. On the metadata side, this has also become more complicated, because as they're delivering to more and more platforms and they have to deliver more and more types of metadata, even things like synopsis length, they're creating 5 or 6 different synopses for every piece of content. And they're also complaining that content coming in from third parties doesn't meet these, so they're having to have people rewrite the metadata coming in. So it's become a big problem. Another third point is around compliance. And this has become another issue where there's a lot more compliance requirements, which we'll look at also in a second. I realize I'm probably spending too long, so let me go a bit faster. So versioning is the first one we're going to look at, and this is coming from the audience demand for more personalized content. As I said before, audiences want content targeted towards them, and it's become very complicated. You now have lots and lots of different versions being produced. These have to be ingested, QC'd, packaged correctly. One area that companies are looking at is for AI to assist with versioning the content. So in other words, asking for AI to make suggestions for creating a YouTube version or a TikTok version. This is something that I've seen at some of the shows. And I put a link there at the bottom to the IBC 2024 Demand versus Supply Report, where we looked at this, and it was about how to engage audiences better on different platforms, different places. So this is one area that's become more complicated. It comes from audience demand for personalization. Metadata, as we discussed before, lots of different requirements. Validating and editing the metadata has become expensive, time-consuming. One issue which has also broken some of the traditional MAMs is being able to identify assets through multiple IDs and schemas. And Alessandro and I were speaking yesterday that there have been some industry attempts to create universal IDs like IDER and others. Unfortunately, they have worked in certain segments of the industry, but unfortunately, we haven't agreed yet on a way, like a more universal one that can kind of cross over. And the crossovers become very important as we're no longer working kind of in silos. We're working in a much more open way. So we kind of need a universal ID that crosses advertising, crosses infomercials, crosses programmatic content. And it's something that still is creating problems. And then the final one here is...
Do you think that there can be an agreement finally into a common... So are you confident that is something achievable or not? I mean,
I'm hoping so. And it's actually one of the things we're going to be looking at as part of the revision of that work you mentioned earlier, is I'm hoping so, but I don't know. I think we need to kind of agree, and I think there's move towards that direction, but we'll have to see what happens. I think it's the best way to say it. I wouldn't put my bets on it actually working, but hopefully. And then the final one here, just to speed this up, is richer contextual information. So advertisers are demanding more and more contextual information. They want to know if they put an ad for a car, was there a car chase scene maybe before? And the same thing with recommendation engines. When I log on as a subscriber to Netflix, I get tons and tons of content that it thinks I would like. And that really does require a lot of data, not only about me and what I like, but also about specifics of what's in the content that they're recommending to make those choices. So huge amounts of contextual data being demanded by platforms for delivery.
Also, this is something that would require some standardization, I think, at the end of the story. I understand that every platforms has their own requirements, their own recommendation engines, and so on. But hopefully that's something that could require a more streamlined process and standardization.
Yes, I agree. Hopefully it will be.
Okay.
And there are some moves towards that as well. Like there's a couple of movements I know Barb in the UK is looking at ways to do it. And there's other organizations. There's Origin in the US and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the other one, but yeah, there are some attempts to do that.
Good.
So accessibility is the next one. So a lot of Gen Z viewers particularly watch content with subtitles on even in their native languages. It's something which is kind of a generational phenomenon, but it's become very important. In the US and the EU, and we have the European Accessibility Act 2025 coming online, there's a lot of mandating increased accessibility. So we're having to really have titles, have audio description, have that on the content that we produce, which is adding more complexity in. To top that off, platforms and territories have different accessibility specifications and legal requirements. So there's a lot more compliance coming in to make sure that the titles you're creating meet that. And it means that now there's a lot more managing of compliance and QC. So it's just further complicating that workflow. And NAB 24, we looked at accessibility and some of the issues there. So I put a link on the bottom there to the demand for supply link, but it is something which is becoming increasingly important. And then finally, we have monitoring and visibility. The conversation about the fact that VOD is so much more difficult than linear channel. Linear channel, you watch it, you watch the output. But here you have assets coming in from a variety of sources, internal and external. You have subtitles, you have versions. Then you're delivering this out to many different places, And one of the questions that we had when I did this at NAB 23 is someone said they never knew where their files were. So how do you make it easier for people to know actually where the files, where is in the workflow? And that's, with these complicated workflows, it's very difficult. So that's also added complexity. So I guess in summary, you would have hoped that VOD delivery became easier, but it's become much more difficult. And as Alessandro was saying, hopefully we can come up with some standards and ways of working that will make this simpler, because it's becoming too costly for many of our members to actually, to deliver.
Okay, good. I just reminded the booklet that you mentioned before, because I prepared this slide with the QR code for downloading. So if someone is interested to go even more in depth, the document is not that recent, but it still contains valid information, I think. So
it does. And on the DPP website, I said there's the demand versus supply, which kind of updates some of that too.
Sure, good. I just will ask the other guests if they have any question to David before going further into the conversation. I think your presentation has been absolutely super exhaustive and complete, and very informative. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We all agree that the presentation is great. So from our side, I think there is nothing to add.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, David, for your presentation. Now it's time for Max. So Max, you can be your intro and go into the presentation. Thank you.
Fine. Yes, as we have already told, Flat Parioli is post-production lab in Rome, and we are specialized in high quality finishing, especially in the color grading, color correction, editing of video and film in general. We offer a huge range of tailored services for our customers. The purpose of my speech today is to basically give to our audience the post-production point of view on the finishing workflow. As we have seen with David in his presentation, there are a huge amount of standards and best practice to observe in the finishing process for the video delivery. And as a post-production house, we introduce and constantly update these standards in our internal workflow. And of course, this has a very important impact at different level. So for instance, in the infrastructure, generally speaking, but also, and most importantly, in the workstation with the hardware and software maintenance and upgrading. We will go through the content delivery formats most representative in our job. I try to explain the importance to define and respect a robust content delivery pipeline. And we will also highlight which are the main technical aspects of that. In the slide, I've summarized the different type of file format very common in our job, and I'd like to divide the different delivery format in 3 categories. I've mentioned the interchange format. With interchange format, I like to mention all the file codec used with the explicit purpose to exchange video material with different departments or people within the post-production workflow. So we have the H.264 or the H.265 format. If we need to share preview with our customers or with the director or the photography director, the H.264, H.265 are very light and high quality format. Then I mentioned also the DNX HD or HR are prepared typically for the editorial department working with Avid. As well, the ProRes proxy or LT are typically required when in some situation the editorial department do not work with Avid, but prefer to work with different editorial software, for example, the Adobe Premiere Pro or others. Also, a quick note on the AAF and the older EDL, which do not have a video essence, but are the interchange file format used to let different editing software to communicate each other, as we will better see in the next slides. Then the semi-finished product. In this category, I've listed the file format most used in the post-production workflow as semi-finished material. Typically, these are the exports coming out from the color grading process. And these materials are ready for the last step, that is the finishing process. In the finishing category, we have to distinguish from the theatrical finishing and the TV finishing. The theatrical finishing means the delivery of a film to the theater. We are talking of standard dynamic range. For the theatrical finishing, we have the DCP, the digital cinema package, as the standard for digital cinema distribution. For the TV finishing, we have then to distinguish again from standard dynamic range and high dynamic range. In this category, I've listed the most used format, the IMF, the Apple ProRes, and the older but still used XDCAM. Also in this category, I have listed the file format used for archiving purpose. Typically, we have the DCDM, the Digital Cinema Distribution Master, that is a set of uncompressed and unencrypted TIFF file sequence of the movie in the XYZ color space, which is the digital cinema color space. And also the DSM, the Digital Source Master, that is a RGB DPX or TIFF sequence file.
Sorry, Max, I do appreciate that you have extended a bit the topic to the cinema part. That is not exactly what was the original intention, but is absolutely super interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is due to the fact that the purpose of my presentation is to let's see which is the complexity in the delivery pipeline itself. Of course, with this diagram displayed in this slide, I would like to represent the post-production simplified, a very simplified workflow, and highlight where and when the explained file format are typically used in our job. So we start from the original camera file, that are the camera-dependent format. And on that, we could spend hours talking about the latest ARRI RAW or Red Code RAW new format, for example. I've mentioned ARRI RAW and Red RAW just for an example, because there are a huge variety of original camera file format coming from others camera provider. I'm thinking about Sony, Blackmagic, and much others. In the post workflow, we go to the daily preparation. This means we work with the OCF to export interchange file format for the editing department, applying a pre-color grade on the image. These files are editing software dependent. So, for example, if the editorial department will work with the Avid software, we will to export the DNX HD files. Next, we have the editorial process, where, as you can see, I've mentioned some of the interchange file format, for example, the H.264, but also the ProRes LT, ProRes proxy. Most importantly, the AAF, the Advanced Authoring Format, and the EDL, the Edit Decision List, used to communicate with the online conform. This file, in their simplicity, have the power to translate what has been decided in the editorial department, where they have worked with the interchange file to the OCF file used in the online timeline during the conforming process. Then we have the core of our job, which is the color grading, distinguished from SDR and HDR color grade, arriving finally to the SDR finishing with DCP, ProRes, XDCAM, and also HDR finishing typically with the IMF or ProRes delivery format. In this next slide, I've furthermore summarized the content delivery pipeline just to introduce the last two processes in the delivery workflow, which are the quality check performed on the delivery file and the archiving. The quality check could be performed in different ways. We prefer always to perform, first of all, a human QC, and in parallel, a software QC, using specific software and tool for that. We mentioned already ColorFront. We use for the delivery, but also for some QC. The post-production process can be considered officially concluded when the archiving materials have been delivered digitally or physically to the customer. Also in this slide, I've highlighted in red two crucial aspects in the post-production workflow. Referring to the OCF, we have a no-stop development of original camera file standards. This is very important aspect for the post-production and, generally speaking, for the entire finishing process, because if the input change, everything has to be managed differently during the pipeline. Also, in the creative grading, we have regular new development of and improvement in the color science. We have a lot of new AI tools, artificial intelligence tools, that are constantly deployed, and this has a very huge impact on the technical requirement, as we can see in the next slide. Not only regarding the software itself, but also regarding the calculation power of the working workstation. Of course, it's not easy to summarize the technical requirement for a post-production lab in the delivery pipeline, but we can for sure share 3 points, which are the first one: manage the video signal means to use the right hardware, which must be able to manage all the color signs, all the color space, and the senior format standard. But also means use the correct and the right software to deliver fast, cost effective, and respecting, moreover, the delivery format requirement. We must use the right hardware and software for the delivery in order to be always compliant with the delivery specification and standards, as mentioned with David, for example. And last, we have always be able to must be able to measure our system. And I have mentioned the QC, the quality check of the final product. On top of that, but also the calibration of the system, which means to have the correct tools to read and validate what we are doing over time. Calibration also means manage the content delivery pipeline, considering that the hardware can become obsolete in 2 or 3 years. And also the software update turnover is about 8 months from my calculation. So we must always be updated on the hardware and on the software. And we have always be partner with especially with the software house for keep our system calibrated and updated every time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. I think also your presentation has been very, very interesting and demonstrates the hard work that you have to do every day to satisfy the requirements of your customers in terms of production houses, and of course provide the recipient of your deliverables to be consistent and up to the specification. So that's absolutely.
Thank you to you. And I have to add that when we planned this live talk, it was really difficult to keep all the aspect of the job, as I think also David made this kind of
Sure.
thought, because it's very difficult to summarize in few slides the huge amount of work outside in the background.
Do the other guests have any question to Max? Okay, no, I think so. Great job, Max. If no questions, it means
I'm
that
very happy.
Absolutely super
Thank
clear.
you, guys.
So
Thank you.
thank you. And now it's time for Laura. Ciao, Laura, and thank you again for being with us. So I will put your presentation in full screen because I know that it's quite dense of information.
Yes, thank you, Ale, and thank you, David and Max, for your points. They're super interesting and very important. In fact, I'm going to show in practice using the interface of Transcoder how to actually go through some of these pain points that David and Max described in their presentation. I'm using a Transcoder from Colorfront. Is our mastering and QC software, is the big brother of our different products. And I'm using it on a computer, on a Windows machine with 4 GPU in this case, but the software can be installed on different levels, let's say, of hardware. So you can have it running on a Mac or on a more user friendly system. It doesn't have to be so beefy, depending actually from the amount of work you're doing. Especially if you're doing a lot of IMF, like Max was explaining, that requires a lot of processing. So we suggest to use certified and maybe a bit more powerful system in that case. Right, so this is Transcoder, and I promise I'm going to show you only a little part of what Transcoder can do, just to make things, faster and to keep it short. So right here, I have a ProRes in HDR that I imported in my system. And as you can see, I can already analyze and view the analyzer in terms of scopes and lights and colors. It's already given me some inputs. For example, here, my gamut is exceeding the limitation expressed. So this is a typical situation that can happen. So before I start delivering and create my packages for OTT or my deliverables, like Max explained, that needs to go between departments and to continue my workflow, I'm going to show you a little bit of my QC. It happens in different ways. I have a window here that allows me to analyze some of the things. I have many more, but I'm going to just show you this once. Some of them are internal logic of transcoder, our technology. Some of them are AI assisted. And also you can operate a manual and human QC in transcoder as well. For now, let's run a loudness analysis for the audio, a light level analysis, but just of the frame active image area that it's between the blanks. A brightness guard is AI assisted, defining everything that it's above 300 nits. Framing error detection, and let's generate all this. So in one go, I'm analyzing all these different things. You see, the speed is quite fast because I have a beefy machine on my back with lots of GPU processing. I'm doing everything together. Framing error detection, if the frame was moved. Light level analysis for my HDR. Brightness guard, and also repeated frame, black frame, so a bunch of things, including the audio. All this analysis created at the same time a few things. It created a CVS file that can also be exported as EDLs. So for example, I can import this marker of problematic clips into DaVinci and move information around. These markers are automatically re-imported inside of transcoder in the form of markers in my timeline. So I already can see here a list of problematic things that transcoder found for me. It found some problems in the MaxCLL, so the brightness, some problems in the gamut, something that is actually exceeding the 300 brightness nits brightness guard, some repeated frames, and some framing. In order to move and check all these markers, I have created a QC markers layout. I have many tools in transcoder that allows me to, check all these different markers and see if there actually are problematic clips or anything. So for example, I can just quickly go and check my, gamut problem. If I click on here, it will take me to the problematic gamut problem in the timeline, and I can actually check if this is a problem that needs to be fixed. One that I really like is the framing detection. This acts in a very clever way. It will create a mask of what my framing needs to be, and then it will control the whole timeline and find problematic points. And I have to say that it does find a lot of situations that are really hard to find with human eyes. For example, in this particular area, he detected something that is problematic on the left-hand side. You see, it's basically highlighting it here. It tells me it moves from 0 to 2 pixel. And if I double click, it takes me right there where the problem is. And I can clearly see here that there are 2 pixels of black that shouldn't be there, right? Okay, so including all this automatic AI assisted and all that, I am creating reports of this. I'd like to show you that because it's very interesting. We have a media report that allows you to basically show everything that you just calculated, or even stuff that you put with your own eyes and manually that you realize that it's something incorrect, crew on set or something like that. Then you have a summarized media report. It gives you all the info of your timeline, a glimpse of what your composition is. And then I start listing all the things that it calculated. First of all, the HDR light level analysis. This is a super important document that can be shared with the OTT or with your other departments that really analyze, the problematic points in your material. Then it start listing whatever we found with all the information, MaxCLL problems, the gamut problems that were in this particular trailer. This is the framing that I mentioned before with the mask that was calculated and anything that was actually moving of how many pixels and where. More important, it gives you also obviously the time code. These are the list of black frames that were detected. We have some repeated frames that were detected. And finally, the loudness analysis. So it tells me exactly where the true peak of my audio is, and the timestamp of that exceeding decibel in the analysis. So that's for the analysis of the HDR of the QC. So something that you would run to actually see what is wrong with your material. And also, I'd like to show you this report, which is also the extremely important HDR report that Transcoder creates during the analysis of the light level situation. So this is particularly important for HDR material. It will detect whenever your image is exceeding the 1000 nits limitation, and also in the gamut if it's going outside of the Rec 2020 or P3 space that is required for HDR deliverables. And it also automatically tells you if you failed the check of this analysis, and also it will give you a list of time code, rec time code, source time code, and the amount of the error that he detected. So this is another super interesting, important document that needs, that can be very helpful for your material. Now, once you analyze your QC and you're happy to deliver, you can fix some of this problem inside of Transcoder, of course. In the Transcoder and every other ColorFront product, we use the ColorFront engine algorithm, which is our set of matrix and algorithm that operates all the transformation, including going from SDR to HDR, or even correcting and fixing any problems in terms of gamut and brightness, and they're super sophisticated. When we're happy to export our material, I'd like to show you, of course, you can go and you have all the different options of exporting encoders. Like Max explained some of this, most of them that are, either Avid formats or Apple ProRes encoders, all the HEVC, different web encoders, image sequence and broadcast. So anything that you need to export from Transcoder, it's possible, and we have different options to do that. But if we are actually exporting to go on an OTT, I will then open my finalize window that will give me the option to create a package for any OTT. And what's important here regarding what David explained before, every OTT have their specification, their metadata requirements and all that. So what we have a list of the major OTT that are out there, Netflix, Disney, Sony, HBO, Warner, Amazon. So you can simply select the type of IMF that you need to create. And by selecting the OTT here, it will automatically fill up all the metadata according to the specification of that particular OTT. Of course, you can create a version file. David mentioned the supplemental versioning. They can have different subtitles, different territory. So everything can be set up here to create your versioning. Once you create your package, finally, what I would like also to show you is the fact that you can also validate your packages inside of Transcoder. Once the package is created, you can re-import it and then check. We have various plans, so you can check your IMF using the Transcoder plan. That is checking your JPEG 2000 compression, that all the assets are there and are working. But we also have, for example, the photon library check. This is actually what, for example, some OTT will use once they receive your package to actually validate your IMF. You can really use that same library to validate your IMF previously. We also can validate DCP and other information like Dolby Visions and things like that. So in general, Transcoder is a very solid software that allows you to really check your material and prepare for your deliverables. Sorry, I went really fast.
No,
I know,
thank you. presentation is very complete, and it gives the sense that you have in your hands a tool that allows you to check your content properly, document all the faults, which is very important because you have to report back to your customer client. And the fact that you have a very solid information allows you to be a trusted counterpart. I say that because sometimes there are other faults reported that are not so technical, or pertains more to the artistic choices of the content, that are quite difficult to be reported back and sustained. So if you are a trusted counterpart for the other part, it's more easy also to have the political power to sustain also something that is less technical. So I appreciate that type of
Absolutely.
So also you mentioned also, which is important, that ColorFront can be a full-powered enterprise solution in case you have to sustain automated processes, big amount of content to be processed, but also can be a standalone solution. So it's very scalable on that sense.
Absolutely. Like, two things that you mentioned, Ale, that are really important. First is that obviously with the AI and all the technology that is out there, when you run QC analysis that are automated and AI assisted, sometimes you do end up with a lot of information. And the problem is how to navigate between this. And most of them are false positive. And you're like, okay, my job is now 3 times more. So you need a valid structure on the back, and that is already preparing the content and show you the candidates that are already not false positive but proper error. So a good backup there, and also the ability to automate the process that it's vital. And and Transcoder is fully automatable in a very user-friendly way. API, watch folder, but all mainly API, using online forms and things like that allows you to set up your presets and launch all the processes from the background, which is, I think, very intelligent and helpful.
Yeah, good. I would like also to show this slide that I've prepared for our viewers. This will be available with the link in description if you want to download, have a look. So it's a bit representing a bit what David presented before, with a bit more structured information inside. So I hope this will be something that you will appreciate as well. So, David, you have or Max, do you have any question about Laura's presentation?
No, I think it's really great to see how, as you said, on the reporting of everything and reporting of finding what issues are coming up, but also in the interface. It's always great for me to see technology that makes that quite a complicated process easier. So I enjoyed seeing what you were demonstrating. We're going to be writing about QC in our NAB demand versus supply report, so we should catch up at some point and look and see look at ColorFront and discuss some of that as well. So no, it was a great presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I think it's
I have no question. Okay. I have no question, but I would like to highlight the standard and delivery merge with ColorFront. When I say in my presentation that when you deliver, you have to be fast, efficient, and cost effective. With the tool, when you have the standard update in the color delivery page, it's a lot of time you
save.
You go faster for the. So I much appreciate this kind, and also that you see and what we have seen in the presentation.
Okay, good. So I think that now our webinar is going to end, and I wish to thank you all for your attendance, your time, and collaboration. I wish also to thank Nacho Mazzini, which is the distributor of ColorFront that allowed Laura to be with us today, and Rowan de Pomerai, which is CTO of DPP, for having made David at our disposal for today's presentation. So thank you, Rowan, for this. So that's it. Thank you again. And I just would like to give a little, trailer for the next webinar, which will be about media asset management. So stay tuned with us and see our next episode. So thank you so much and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao.